Good evening, everyone. This is Ian Durius, and I'm on here with my colleague, my esteemed colleague, Gwen Petty, and welcome to our July webinar. Really exciting to be on this webinar with you because we're going to be talking about the Event Volunteer Program. And I think you'll find that our discussion tonight is going to be very helpful to you who might be kind of newer to volunteering for compassion at events. And then also, it may be a good refresher for you who've done it before. And so we're really looking forward to discussing this with you tonight. In a moment, I'm going to introduce our guest, Gwen Petty. But before that, just a couple of quick announcements as we begin. The first one is about our upcoming Experience Compassion Conference in Chadds Pennsylvania. So the date is September 6th, and I'll include a registration link in a follow-up email to this webcast. So you can expect that from me shortly after we're done here. But if you're in the Northeast, or if you would like to travel to the Northeast and join us in Chadds Pennsylvania, which is about 30 minutes outside of Philadelphia, you're welcome to. And it'd be great to see you there, and we'll have a whole lineup of speakers. And the day is really all about thanking you as sponsors and advocates, and hopefully inspiring and equipping you as you speak up for those who can't speak for themselves. So again, that's September 6th in Chadds Pennsylvania. That is the Experience Compassion Conference. So again, I'll email you a link, but I'm excited about it, so I wanted to say something about it. And then also, you may have been on one of these webcasts before. Either way, we take questions during these webcasts. And so at any time you have a question, please feel free to go to the questions box in your control panel and just type it in. And we'll do our best to answer the questions. What we like to try to do is maybe group a set of questions and ask them as it kind of pertains to the topic at hand. So if you ask a question and it's not answered right away, just hang tight. We'll probably get to it. And if not, we have all the questions that you asked. So we'll make sure that we answer your questions even after the webcast via email. So again, ask questions, and I'll be repeating that throughout the webcast to encourage you to ask any questions that you might have, because we have a really great guest with us tonight, Gwen Petty, who just knows so much about the Event Volunteer Program. And Gwen is actually works for Compassion from Charleston, South Carolina. She is our Event Facilitator Manager. And kind of fun through the miracle of modern technology, I am working from Compassion in Portland, Oregon right now. And Gwen is in Charleston, South Carolina, and yet we're here together through the digital capacity. But what we're noticing as we've been kind of preparing for this webcast, there's a bit of a delay, and so you might notice that between Gwen and I's conversation and perhaps the slides going through. Oftentimes those work itself out, which would be really great if that was the case. But if not, just hang tight with us and just know that it'll eventually sync up, and you'll see what Gwen is seeing, and everything will make sense. So without any further ado, Gwen, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Ian, thank you so much for having me, and everyone who has joined us on the webinar. I'm so excited to be here and just to share a little bit about the Event Volunteer Program. And just at the most basic level, for those of you who may not be familiar, our team really is the one that's out there finding sponsors and advocates like yourselves and connecting you guys with event opportunities that we have to represent compassion out in your communities. So it's always an exciting thing for me to get to talk about opportunities because I want people to experience being at the table and seeing children get sponsored.
Yeah, it's a really exciting opportunity to work at a compassion event because you're really collaborating with the compassion artist or the compassion speaker or what have you, and then you're there representing compassion at the table. Then we talk about the table rushes and those table rushes are when people are literally rushing the table because they want to sponsor a child. And it's so fun to be able to collaborate with each other in that realm, but then also obviously God is at work in that room. God was already at work, and so to kind of see the next step in God's work in this realm. It's really exciting. So thank you, Gwen, for joining us. Tonight, we're going to talk about a handful of things. This handful of things are, first, we'll start off with our upcoming events. What is new? If you've been around Compassion long enough, you'll know that our partnership with, for instance, our artists there are plenty of them, and oftentimes they just kind of pop up. And so we'll be able to kind of share a little bit about what's coming down the pike for upcoming events. And then also, we talk about events kind of in general, but there are different kinds of events that may be helpful for us to talk things through. And then we'll talk about how to sign up for these events. And then when you sign up for an event and you show up on site, I will talk a little bit about who you could look out for and who you'll be collaborating with, and then also the kind of training that you might get on site, but then also maybe as right before you attend and work the event. So Gwen, would you talk to us a little bit about our upcoming events?
Yes, and I'm sorry if you saw the screen on my computer was doing something funny. I'm going to try and advance some slides so that you'll have a visual of some things. But before I even talk about the upcoming events, I think it's important to know that there are a lot of different opportunities with the upcoming events, something for everyone really. And one of the things that we do is we work with what we call channels. And if you can see the slide now, it describes the music, events, church, radio, and the mobile experience. And those are the channels that we find volunteers for, and the event opportunities that are represented in our database. And what happens is these are relationships that the directors on each of these channels have sought out and nurtured to have folks that are passionate advocates about compassion out there in their spheres of influence. And so there's all kinds of things going on these days, and lots of opportunities for anyone who's interested. Just to show you some numbers and some names, right now I looked at just the events coming up through the end of August. And I have 71 up there, but really that doesn't represent the total number, because one of the events is the Willow Creek Association Summit. And on one day there are 25 locations for that event, as well as the same thing with the Lifeway Christian bookstores, represents 7 locations. So even that 71 is more than what it seems. But you have Casting Crowns coming up with a number of volunteer needs, which is a music event. You've got the Mom Initiative coming up, which is a women's conference. And you've got the Awesome God Festival. You have, as I mentioned, the Willow Creek Summit, and then the mobile experience as well, which all represent different kinds of volunteering experiences. Standing at a table, talking to people about sponsoring a child, passing out child packets in the audience to a Casting Crowns crowd. The mobile experience is walking people through the actual experience of children in Compassion's program. In our mobile experience, the semi-trucks that are set up to simulate a day in the life. So there are a lot of different things going on in lots of different channels, and the total number of shifts, volunteer shifts that are represented in these events is 1,349, and that would be individual volunteers. And as of today, there were 765 volunteers still needed. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of a brief representation of what a month might look like for us. So of course, we seek out our sponsors, our advocates to fill these shifts and be excited about being at the table and being out at these events.
Yeah, and Gwen, I know you've been around for a while now. How does that lineup that we're looking at on the screen, how does that compare to, years past? I mean, more or less the same?
Oh, no. Definitely, we have grown by leaps and bounds. Just in the past year, I believe it's probably tripled from the last year what the volunteer needs have been. So we're always finding new relationships that want to talk about compassion. So there are more opportunities for everyone.
Yeah, yeah, well said, well said. So it's kind of like one of those things that's a good problem. We have all these relationships growing. More and more people are interested in representing compassion, and therefore creating more people, or I guess recruiting more sponsors. But then also it takes more effort to kind of put on some of these events. So that's why we need you, to the audience, to the advocates and sponsors that are listening in, to be able to represent compassion, because you're the ones that we first go to, because you know compassion so well. You're locked into your sponsorship. So just the fact that you have a letter writing relationship with your child, it really equips you well to talk about someone who's potentially going to sponsor or want to sponsor again. So Gwen, if someone, actually, let me take a real quick pause here to remind our audience, if you have any questions, please feel free to use the questions box. Don't be shy, and just fire away, and we'll take those as they come in. So Gwen, so if I wanted to represent compassion at an event, what are my steps? How would you go about signing up?
Well, that's a great question, Ian, and one that hopefully a lot of people have at least heard about. The easiest way to do it is through our actual website. If you have your account registered online, you can actually go into my account and follow the steps to go to my advocacy and actually search for events in your area and sign up online. We make it very, very easy, but I realize that maybe not everyone has registered their account online. So I just encourage you, if you haven't done that, to go ahead and do that. It's a very quick process, and it's a free web account. So, and this
Uh-oh, everyone. I think we're having a bit of technical difficulty.
Designed you to keep up with what.
Hey, Gwen, if you can hear me. Sorry, everyone. It looks like we're having a problem with our connection here. Gwen, I'm just hearing snippets of you. Let me see. Let's just hang tight just for a moment. Let me see what I can do on my end, if I can fix things. So, Gwen, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay.
There may be a storm in the area for me, so it may be coming from my end.
Yeah. Well, I'm hearing you okay now, so let's just keep going. That was helpful, but unfortunately, I personally didn't hear anything beyond uh, setting up the account. Do you think you could go back to that part and then carry on from there?
Yes, okay, and forgive me if you did hear me and I'm repeating. Uh, Basically, the easiest way to keep up with events is to have that online account, and it's easy to set it up. You go to this page and you can create your account, and all you need is your sponsor number to do it, and your sponsor number is on all of your correspondence coming from Compassion. But there is also another way that you're able to find out about events. What happens is when an event comes to a certain zip code, an appeal is sent out via email to sponsors and advocates within a certain radius of that event to ask them if they want to sign up for the event. And sometimes the appeals will reach in a certain area and not reach you. So that's a reason to double check on my account to make sure that maybe there's something a little bit outside of your zip code that you want to be a part of. So you have both ways to be able to sign up, and also everyone has what's called a volunteer coordinator that is over their area, and the one that is sending out the email appeals and actually signing you up to volunteer. And they are advocates themselves, so they volunteer their time to reach out to sponsors to volunteer for events. And they spend a lot of time on email and on the phone, and so that's what they love to do, and that's their ministry. So you should have someone that's in your area that takes care of that for you.
Very good, very good. Thank you, Gwen. And you know, this is good timing for a question that we have come in. So related to the Willow Creek Summit, in the past we've had many, essentially we've had tables at every single satellite, but this time around, kind of recalling your earlier slide, we're only staffing tables at 25 different sites. So am I right in thinking that historically if so obviously you can only volunteer at the site if it's a site that had a table?
Right.
Would that be accurate?
That's correct, and you know, that really was a move this year just to try and concentrate on the locations that are going to have the highest number of attendees. It really was a scaling back because we want to make sure that we are good stewards of everyone's time, and how we're doing the things on site at these events. We want to concentrate where we know we'll get a little activity, and then, you know, maybe down the road we'll increase it again. But this is more of a connecting, networking time this year. After we had such a big year last year, it was just time to regroup.
Yeah, and it sounds like that decision probably is good timing because of all the other events that we're trying to staff as well. Probably to know that
Yes.
we have to recruit less to Willow Creek is probably a good, helpful thing.
Right.
Yeah, and then also, and I just wanted to reiterate one of your points. So when you go into my account and you're looking for an event, you type in your zip code and then you can choose a certain radius. So those events that pop up there are simply in your area or in that certain radius. So in all of our events are loaded into that event finder, but obviously you only want to search for a event that's nearby you, easier to get to. But then also, I've heard of advocates. In fact, I've done this before. I knew I was traveling to a certain area, and I just put the zip code of like in my case, I was going to visit with my family up in Seattle, so I plugged in my zip code there just to see what compassion events were there. So so you can certainly work events in your area, but then also you can work events in area you might be visiting or just be going through, for instance.
That's correct, and actually they have also added a state drop-down box as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you can actually choose another state besides just knowing exactly what zip code you're going to. If you're traveling, you can now choose the state as well. If you know you're going to travel to California and you want to search for events. So yeah, we want to try and make it as easy a process as possible so that it's just a quick sign up to get involved.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. And then just one other thing to revisit, just going back to the Willow Creek Summit. So correct me if I'm wrong, Gwen. As an advocate, we will probably hear about the Willow Creek Leadership Summit, whether it be through Compassion or elsewhere. I mean, if you've been to one Willow Creek Leadership Summit, you'll probably be on the email list, and you know that. So we'll be apprised of all the locations, but only 25 of those locations will Compassion have a table. So that's at the core of that's the core difference this year around. That if you don't see it, like if you're the event finder and you plug in your zip code and you know for sure there's a church in your area that has a Leadership Summit satellite, but it doesn't show up in the event finder, it's because we're not staffing a table there. Is that a good summary?
Yes.
Very good. Good. See, I pay attention to you guys. I'm collaborating. Okay. So this is great, Gwen. And those questions are coming in. Thank you, everyone. Some of those questions that I just asked came from you. So keep them coming. Let's move on to what to expect. So we talked about upcoming events, the different kinds of events. We talked about how to sign up for those events. So let's say you sign up. From that, could you kind of talk us through that point, Gwen? You sign up. What can you expect when you're on site? And maybe even what can you expect between signing up and showing up on site?
Sure. So I just changed to a new screen that mentions several folks, and I already mentioned the volunteer coordinators. They're behind the scenes, but they're the powerful warriors behind the scenes finding volunteers for these events. But the other two that are mentioned, the event facilitators and the independent contractors, or road reps, we call them now. What happens when you sign up online and you're confirmed for an event and you're going to go and show up at this event? You probably will wonder, well, am I going to have to do this all myself? Is this going to be something where I sort of fumble through my first time and not really know what's going on? Well, we obviously don't want that to happen. So in the majority of cases, you're going to have one of these two types of people there to meet you at the event when you arrive. It's either the event facilitator, which they are volunteer facilitators that are at the event, or the road reps, which are paid contractors to be out on the road at an event. And it's their job to make sure that everyone that comes to work an event is feeling good about it and prepared, and they train you on site on what's going to go on during the night and how to help people fill out forms and how to pass packets. So they are there to serve you and lead you through the process from beginning to end. So there's never going to be a time where we want to leave you hanging, where you're off on your own like that. And one of the things also that we do before you even get to the event is, if it's your first time, we send you a training link. And it's on our website, and it takes you to this page that has videos that you can watch. It has the documents that you're going to be working with, so you can look them over before you even go. It tells you how they're filled out. Because our main goal is that you go into this experience feeling like you're prepared and excited and ready to be at that table and having those conversations and really talking about something that you already love as a compassion sponsor. And we would never want anyone to have a negative experience by feeling like they're unprepared. So those are kind of the basics of what it looks like. And I will just say, as an aside, there are a few events that will pop up where we do send in a volunteer that's, one or two volunteers, and there is not an event facilitator or an independent contractor on site. But they're smaller, they're college chapels mainly, and you're given a detailed description of everything that you're supposed to do. So again, we send you in prepared and ready to meet those folks at the table.
Yeah, well said. And I think that the training that you offer for the on-site is so unique to the event, which is really cool because no two events are alike. But then also, we can't understate, or we can't overstate the fact that you're sponsoring a child, that you're actually doing what the people at the table are wanting to do or considering doing. So really the table is an opportunity for you to represent that story. I mean, oftentimes you don't have time to just go into all the ins and outs of what your sponsorship is like, but you're going to be drawing on that well to be able to share your experience as these folks decide on sponsoring a child. And then further, and this is kind of where our collaboration, Gwen and I's collaboration just deepens, is that even though you don't have an upcoming event to work, because if you did, you'll get training. We talked about that. But then you also, the ongoing training that we have really kind of equips you, kind of helps you be prepared for when those events come. Our advocate classes are on summer break right now, but I'm sure all of you have heard of or know about the classes that we offer during the academic part of the year, September to May or June. And so one way to be ready for these events is to just be involved, to take those classes. Sometimes it's helpful to take time to read the Compassion blog if you haven't, just to kind of hear the fresh stories that are coming from the field and from other sponsors and advocates and so on. So in every way we want you to feel equipped. And that's what we offer kind of on a broader picture, but then also specifically when you do sign up an event. But also, it's inside you already. It's the fact that you are sponsoring that is just really I guess the realest representation that we can bring. Because the best part is, if someone has a question that you don't know how to answer, you can always just say, I don't know, but I'll find out. That's just, keep that in your back pocket. but you know your experience, and oftentimes people say, so how is it like to be a sponsor? And you can definitely talk to them about that and have that be something that helps them decide. All right. So yeah, Gwen, that was a little bit about who you would see on site, but then also how we prepare folks to volunteer. And we have a few questions coming in. What kind of things, what would you recommend in this scenario? Obviously our volunteers have the story that is in them about their sponsorship, but what if they were to bring, for instance, like a scrapbook or something that is representative and tangible of their sponsorship? What kind of, I don't know, best practices do you have when it comes to actually working the table in that way?
Well, I love when sponsors bring their letters or their scrapbooks to events to show people, because there are a lot of conversations that go on that maybe it takes a while during the whole event to get to have that person sponsor, but they hear all the stories and see pictures, and that gets them more excited, and they want to sponsor. I think, though, that you definitely have to choose the right moments for bringing those things out, because, you know, if there are 10 people deep at the table and you're just trying to talk to as many folks as you can about how to sign up, you just kind of have to choose the right moment to share those things. And it's, you know, it's a balance at the table of making sure that you're helping as many people as you can, but also acknowledging that it's important for people to understand what compassion is about, because there are so many choices out there. You know, what is unique about compassion, and why should I sponsor with compassion? You know, those are the important conversations to have.
Yeah, well said. And you know, I think what you said about just having that balance, Gwen, is just really key, because I mean, I'll admit that it is difficult sometimes when you really want to have a real connection with someone at the table, but knowing that you want to have that kind of connection with tens or 20 to 30 of other people as well, you know. So that's kind of the art in representing compassion at these events. And so to kind of aid you in that, I was really, when I first came to compassion, I was really impressed by, I call it the science of the table. You know, there's a way that we set up the table so that it's just really efficient and maximize it and give those kids in those represented by those packets like just the best chance to be able to get a sponsor to pick them up. So I think when you bring your own stories into it, that's great. But also be mindful that there's a way of doing things here that really meant to hopefully have the best shot at these kids getting a kid sponsored, these folks getting a child sponsored. Would you say that's true, Gwen? Like talking a little bit about, you know, even the setup, the like, what is the word? I guess like how you set up a table and how that's helpful to the kids, even in how you set it up.
Sure. Sure. That's a great question. One of the things that we talk about when we talk about setting up the table is we want to show that we are child focused. And so when we put child packets on the table, that's the focus, and there are not any child packets overlapping. The whole face of the packet is visible, so that the person looking can just look straight down and see the entire face of the packet. And you know, the child packets are the only thing that's on the table most of the time. We'll have a small sign-up area as well, but we really do want people just to zero in on those packets and see those sweet faces. And also, a lot of times when we have a booth set up, we try to make it look inviting. So how we position the display, just to try and draw people in, because it can be a little intimidating from the other side of the table to walk up if you've got folks lined up behind the table waiting to speak to someone. So we try to make it as inviting an environment as possible, and you know, a safe environment as well, just for those that want to sign up. And that's why we have that sign up area where they can go off to the side and not be where everyone else is looking at packets, and they can sign up over there, keeping their own information private on that form. So we really do try to look at all of the angles of the setup. And in years past, too, we've even tried just different displays that are a little more interactive to pull people in that have maybe child packets hanging up on a string so that you literally have to walk up to the display to look at the child packets.
Huh.
So that's kind of our thinking behind that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, this is great. And for those of you listening in, we're getting to the end of the content that we wanted to share with you tonight. So feel free to ask any questions, especially as we're coming to a close. But Gwen, kind of piggybacking off of that, one of the questions that sometimes comes up from advocates is, they'll see something at an event that they work that's unique to them. For instance, like a pilot for, I don't know, what, maybe going back a little bit where they're piloting having CSP, Child Survival Program packets at certain events, as opposed to a conventional child packet, because the band was promoting child survival. And so that's something that's unique. And so do you think you could talk a little bit about how we kind of test some things at events so that if an advocate comes to an event, they might see something just a little bit different, and that may be because we're trying something out and just taking a small kind of segment of our events to see, what might come of it?
Right. Well, actually, that's a very timely question, and this is kind of hot off the presses.
Oh,
so
great.
You guys are getting some exclusive information here. We have a testing that's coming up. It's going to start, I believe, the second week in August. We are going to test a one-page child packet. So the content, if you are familiar with the normal child packet, it has just several pieces in there that can be pulled out. And with this one page, and it will have perforated information goes. And then the other part can be torn off for their first letter to their child, and then the other is just their basic information on their child. And so what we'll do is we'll just send these out to certain events where we know it's going to get some pretty good activity at the table, because we want to have conversations with people at the table about these things. And one of the things we're going to do is we're going to have, and this is kind of new to us too, we're going to have surveys for all of the volunteers to fill out after they work the table that night. And it's going to ask them how their interactions were with people with the one-page child packet, and, do you see any issues involved with it? So we're really counting on our volunteers to dig into this test and help us figure out if this is going to work and if it helps us or hinders us. So those are the kinds of things that we do when we want to test something. And in the past, we've had interviews with sponsors that have just signed up when we've tested a new form, just to ask them, now, was this easy to fill out or confusing? So we really hit the ground running. It's like a grassroots interview movement out to these events, and then we gather all of that information and compile it and sort of make the best conclusion based on our findings.
Yeah.
So there you have it. Exclusive information right there.
I love it. That's why you come to these webinars, people, because we have fresh information. Awesome. Well, thank you, Gwen. And another question came in, and I really appreciate this question because I think it just really showed the heart of an advocate, heart of a volunteer. I think that's one of the privileges that we have working with all of you, those of you listening in, because you really are just really wanting to serve and for the kingdom's sake, for these kids' sake. So thank you. And this question is related to, I guess, like kind of how an advocate can be helpful as maybe being on call. So for instance, in this case, this advocate lived near the church that is having an event. What do you think, Gwen, about her or our advocate saying, I'm not signed up to work for it, but if you get in a bind, I'm available. How helpful would that be, or was that just something that would just be another thing to think about, or what are your thoughts on that? An advocate offering to be on call if need be if they're nearby an event.
Oh, well, I mean, I think that's amazing. You know, one of the things that we have to deal with often is if last-minute opportunities come up, and we don't want to burn any bridges or burn people out, or by asking over and over again and not giving them enough notice. So there are times where we just have to find another way to cover an event. But at the same time, we want to make sure that everyone who wants to hear about opportunities can hear about them, even if they are last minute. So, I would even just suggest if that's on somebody's heart, then whomever their volunteer coordinator is, just let them know that, hey, if things come up last minute or you're in a bind, just give me a call and if I'm available, because that's the amazing heart of a volunteer, being willing to jump in wherever, and obviously there's need of that all the time. So I encourage that, and I also applaud it and thank you for even suggesting something like that, because that's the heart of service right there.
Yeah, well said. I think it would be fair to say that because, like you said, Gwen, our advocates are just giving so much. We take great effort to not ask too much. We're really mindful of asking too much, and because of those reasons, we don't want to burn anybody out and what have you. So it's a real grace if you feel led and can say, I'd be willing to be on call if you really needed it. If you wanted to reach out to your volunteer coordinator, that would be, I'm sure, a welcome email for them to receive. So good. Well, all right. So we are at the end of our time here. So what I'd like to do is just kind of close with a couple of quick announcements. And but before that, Gwen, thank you very much for spending some time here with us tonight. I know it's a little bit later in your time zone than it is mine. So thank you for spending time with us, answering these questions, and putting this presentation together to be able to really help us be better at those tables and better at those events that we're volunteering at.
Well, thank you so much for allowing me to be here, and for everyone who's listening. I just appreciate your time, and just know that please feel free to use me as a resource if you have questions beyond this webinar, and want to get in touch with me and ask me about them, because I want to encourage all of you to get involved in whatever way you want to represent compassion.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, and that's a great point. What I'll do is in the follow-up email to this webinar, I'll include your contact information, Gwen, so if anybody has any further questions, they can contact you. And then probably even more likely that you could direct them to the best place to ask if it's not you, or not me too. So for those of you on the line, do expect an email with this information in it. So good. And with that, just in closing, I wanted to reiterate our upcoming event, Experience Compassion Conference, coming up in Chadds Ford, Pennsylvania on September 6th. That's about half an hour outside of Philadelphia. So if you're interested, you can join us. The information, a link to information and registration will be in the follow-up email to this webinar. And just a real quick clarification, GoToWebinar, the tool that we use to meet here, will send you an automatic email to thank you, but you can expect a personal one from me too, with this information. I'll also thank you for all the questions. These webinars are really great because of the guests that we have, and by guests I mean someone like Gwen, but also people like you who are listening in, who are doing the work. And so any questions that you bring to this webinar really helps the conversation be even more robust. So thank you very much. And lastly, looking forward to our August webinar. August webinar will be hosted by Karen Spencer, Emin Coddington, and Rick Sloop. And August will be one of our quarterly webinars where we kind of give you ministry updates. So you've probably been clued into this, but about once a quarter we have a webinar that's focused on ministry updates. And in this case, the end of our fiscal year has come and gone, so we'll be able to share a little bit about what happened this year as a testimony to God's faith, and also just a time for us to praise Him together. So you can look forward to that. I'll include information for that webinar in the follow-up email too, because you don't want me sitting here reading a long URL full of consonants and vowels and forward slashes and whatnot. That would just be really boring. So with that, everyone have a good night. Thank you for joining us, and we will be in touch. Have a great evening.